Uh, all right. Hello and welcome to the video. My name is Wade Smith, and I am a first Q or black belt candidate in Okinawa and Ishinryu karate and Japanese jiu-jitsu. I've also studied Gracie jiu-jitsu for about a year and a half in total. And to be honest, there's very little in Gracie jiu-jitsu that works that I wasn't already taught in the Japanese jiu-jitsu class. Um, and very little in Gracie jiu-jitsu that I would like to do in a real street fight because you will absolutely get your groin kicked or you will get your throat kicked out while you're trying to put a single leg X on somebody or whatever. Even if fighting from your guard off of your back makes no sense in a street fight. You're going to get your groins crushed. You're going to get your throat crushed laying on your back in a street fight. Because what happens in a street fight, the guy's buddy joins in or his girlfriend or wife joins in and kicks you in the nuts while you're fighting him. So don't deceive yourself into thinking that um, fighting off of your back, go ahead and learn it if you want to, but don't count on it, for goodness sake. So what is the purpose of this video? In this video, I'm actually going to teach karatekas and Japanese jiu-jitsu and judo people how to beat Gracie jiu-jitsu in a real fight. Because they teach Gracie jiu-jitsu to everybody now. They teach Gracie jiu-jitsu to criminals that end up murdering their girlfriend. You used to have to take a background check to take martial arts skills. And now they don't even do that. You can just walk in and sign up. All right. So anyway, some techniques that beat Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in a street fight. Obvious ones are biting, throat jab, stomp kick to the Jiu-Jitsu fighters, to the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, not a Japanese, because a Japanese Jiu-Jitsu fighter is not going to fight on the ground like an idiot. But if he tries to pull guard on you, stomp kick him in the groin or the throat. All right. Um, that kind of stuff. All right. Yeah, or even in the jiu-jitsu school, maybe it's not even a self-defense situation, maybe, or a street fight, maybe it's actually in school. How do you beat the Gracie jiu-jitsu student within the Gracie jiu-jitsu rules? But first of all, Gracie jiu-jitsu schools forbid you to use joint locks if you're less than a blue belt. But thankfully, I've already got a brown belt in another style, right? So the instructor let me wear my brown belt to class. And so what I did is I just tapped them out using joint locks. Whenever he tried to pass my guard, caught hold of his hand and put the front wrist lock on him and tapped him out. And this was a guy with 20 some odd professional fight wins in professional MMA and a second degree Gracie black belt. And I tapped him out with the very first submission I ever learned in Japanese jiu-jitsu class and karate class. The front wrist lock. And then he's like, well, you grabbed individual fingers. That's not legal in MMA. And I'm like, it's legal at a street fight, isn't it? And he's like, well, let's try this again. So we rolled again and we got back in the same position. And he tried to pass my guard again. And I caught him in the front wrist lock across all four fingers and tapped him out in about 7 or 8 seconds. The first time I tapped him out in about 4 or 5 seconds flat when I caught him with 3 fingers like this and put the front wrist lock on him. It's very simple. You can teach the front wrist lock in about 3 seconds. You do it to somebody once or twice. Matter of fact, in a street fight, grabbing 2 fingers or 3 fingers is ideal because it gives you more leverage against their fingers and their wrist. It's going to break their fingers up in their hand and it's going to break their wrist if you do it. That's why it's banned in MMA. But you have to grab across all 4 fingers in MMA. If you grab 2 or 3 fingers, it's so easy to tap them out that they don't want you to be allowed to tap them out. It's not even a safety issue. They want the fights to last longer than 10 seconds in MMA, so they artificially extend fights by banning the 2-finger and 3-finger front wrist lock. So you have to do the 4-finger front wrist lock. And so what? It doesn't work quite as well as the 2 or 3 fingers. So add in some kicks and knee strikes while they're trying to fight back, and you'll absolutely devastate them. So how to beat the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu fighter? It's as simple as the front wrist lock, the very first submission they teach in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. If they are on the ground in their guard position and you're standing and you're trying to pass their guard, don't bother trying to pass their guard. Don't get in their guard either, by the way. but don't bother trying to pass their guard. It's silly. All right, you can do it, and I've done it, and I've tapped them out from side mount and from other positions too. But I tapped one person out that was a girl, naturally, that had no business being rolling with me, and I tapped her out with something as vulgar as the side headlock, and she could not get out of it, and I had pressure on both temples, and she almost passed out and barely managed to tap out within a few seconds. It's like that. If you put a side headlock on somebody, it will tap them out or they will nap. Um, but but yeah, it was just the first thing I went for is a choke, and it didn't quite go as deep as I wanted it to, and it ended up being the side headlock. And I'm like, well, I can tap her with this because it's a girl and I'm a man, and I just tightened my grip like a vice across her temples, and she was gonna nap, so she tapped. Um, Women do not belong in a Gracie Jiu Jitsu class wrestling with men for any number of reasons. There's sexual harassment and lawsuits and everything else that can happen there. And so, I shouldn't even have played along with that, but it happened. And they do not belong in a grappling class with a man because you're going to get sued for sexual harassment and contact and stuff like that. Is what's going to end up happening to the guy. Um, all right, what else? Oh, don't pass their guard. All right, what you do is you go across their legs. Let me see if I can show this because I don't have a demonstration partner. But let's say if this is the guy's guard, let me get my fingers in here. You want to get to the outside of this leg like you're trying to pass guard, and then you put the front figure four ankle lock on his leg, your left arm versus his left leg, which will be cross position. All right, and that'll keep his right leg from being able to move over and push off of you too much. And also, if it's BJJ only, he can't kick with his right leg. If it's MMA, this is not going to work because in MMA, he can kick you in the face while you're trying to do this. But if it's BJJ only, don't try to pass his guard. Put him in the front figure four ankle lock and tap him out. And if that does not tap him out, transition to the reverse figure four ankle lock and the calf slicer, and that absolutely will tap him out. But don't play along with this in guard versus pass guard stupidity that Gracie Jiu Jitsu is designed to fight you with. All right. Tap him out with the front figure four ankle lock or the reverse figure four ankle lock. All right. Front choke, especially if you're wearing a gi and you do end up on top of them, say in their guard, or maybe you've passed and you're in full mount on versus them on the ground. Tap them out with the front choke. Don't worry about trying to get their back or whatever. Don't fall for triangle arm bars and triangle chokes while you're transitioning through their guard if you're going to do it. And then if you're wearing a gi, just front choke them the Hoist Gracie style. But this was taught in karate before anybody ever even heard of Hoist Gracie because it actually comes from Japan, not the Gracie clan. All right. And so in that Jesse Enkamp video the other day where he choked the Gracie Jiu Jitsu guy out with the karate / Japanese Jiu Jitsu front choke, that's exactly right. He proved that he could beat the Jiu Jitsu guy at his own game using only karate skills. All right. That's exactly right. Because first of all, he proved that he could always stay away from the Gracie Jiu Jitsu guy. And then secondly, when the referee forced him to get to grapple with the other guy, because first he was going to just break the guy's leg or ankle lock him, and the referee wouldn't let him do that. And then when the guy went into guard, all right, because he tried to pull guard on him repeatedly. So Jesse was like, well, I'll just put a leg lock on him from the standing position. And the referee's like, no, you can't use a leg lock from the standing position. So then he's forced to grapple with the guy strength on strength, which is totally contrary to what the purpose of martial arts is anyway. But then Jesse's a pretty big guy. So then he immediately mounts the jiu-jitsu guy who was a green belt and put him in the front choke and tapped him out in about 5 seconds flat. And he was like, all the guy had to do to get me off of him was stand up. All right. So other things that beat Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Just kick them in the back of the leg or the butt whenever they're laying on the ground. Or if you're in a street fight, like I said, kick them in the groin or the throat when they're laying on the ground trying to pull guard. Don't fight their game. Because part of the whole purpose of martial arts is to use your brain and not fight the other guy's game. You're supposed to take them completely out of their game plan. And the BJJ guy wants to take the fighter out of you and turn and bait you into trying to wrestling with them, and don't do it. All right, you don't need to. You can just walk away if they are trying to pull guard, or you can kick them in the groin. There's any number of other wrist locks too that they don't even bother teaching in BJJ because they don't think they work, and they absolutely do work. Grandmaster Michael Calandra, 10th Dan in Okinawan karate and Japanese jiu-jitsu. He's a veteran retired police officer, and he teaches joint locks and has proven that they absolutely work on anybody. You just have to know how to use them and know what you're doing. But Ramsey Dewey, the supposed judge of MMA, he claims that they don't work, and they absolutely do work. I know firsthand that they work because I was my sensei's demonstration partner for about 4.5 years. And he demonstrated thousands and thousands of joint locks on me over the years, on my arms and on my legs and everywhere else on the human body. And I'll still remember most of them. But it's like, but now actually it was the same ones, just slight variations of the same ones. To be honest with you, didn't know 1,000 joint locks, even though, we did 2 new ones every day, it seemed like. But sometimes, you got to see it 2 or 3 or 4 times before you remember it. But most of the time, if I saw it 2 times, I remembered it forever. So you got the full wrist lock, which takes your arm in a position like this, and you crank down on the other person's arm here from the back of their hand. Your thumb should be, let me get this right. Your thumb should be in the small of their hand, and your hand should be on their knuckles. All right, and you crank down and back, and then while you're cranking down and back, which is like a circular or almost spherical motion, because you're also cranking to the side because your wrist is weaker to the side than it is to the front. So you're not just going down and back, but you're also turning the wrist over and cranking to the side. So it's kind of a 3D crank. And then while you're doing that, you're knee striking or kicking them in the abdomen or the groin or the front of the knee until you knock their body far enough back to kick them in the abdomen. And then they're going to be falling forward while you crank down, back, and side, and you keep on kicking them over and over again until they tap out. And they will tap out within 5 to 10 seconds, believe you me. That's called the full wrist lock. And anybody that claims it doesn't work has never had it done to them correctly. And I've had it done to me correctly before, and it absolutely works. And it works every single time when somebody who actually knows what they're doing does it. It works every single time. It is guaranteed to tap you out. And I have never once seen them use it in the UFC, either because they don't know it or they don't know it well enough. It's called the full wrist lock. All right. And then there's a reverse version of it where your hand is turned over and you do the exact same motion, only it's backwards. All right. And your thumb is in the small of the hand, your fingers are across their knuckles, and you push up, in, and torque sideways at the same time. It's a 3D motion. And then you're going to be kicking the back of their leg out from under them, kicking them in the ribs, kicking them in the kidney or liver, depending on which side you're on. You get side arm control for free. You get to back fist them in the face over and over again while you have side arm control for free. And, it's as simple as catching someone's hook punch or right cross with a twist punch out of the air and immediately apply. I got them in the reverse wrist lock. Guess what? I got side arm control for free because you threw a wild punch at me. And by the way, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu black belts never practice. I know because I was a member of the Gracie Dojo for a year and a half. They never practice striking except about once a month. And they don't practice good striking. They just randomly beat on a bag with no real professional teaching on how striking works and how to develop real power in their strikes. So, yes, you can absolutely catch an inferior punch out of the air, straight out of the air, and put the person into a submission like that. Um, because they don't know how to throw a correct Okinawan punch, or a correct boxer's punch, even much less an Okinawan punch. Because a traditional Okinawan punch uses a vertical fist leading with the front two knuckles. And the reason for that is the twist in a twist punch. We believe the twist in a twist punch is a waste of energy. All right. Um, in the vertical fist punch, your bones and muscles are aligned that way, and you lead with the top two knuckles. All right. And there's a slight torque to the punch, but only a very slight, because that aligns your radius and all your muscles. And so all of the energy goes straight into the punch rather than wasting some energy twisting. When you twist, you will actually get spiral fractures in your own bones if you hit something hard enough. Um, so, uh, oh, this guy, of course, is the same one that's been harassing me, named Red Pill Crusher. He doesn't use his real name because he's an internet troll. If you're an honest person, you use your real name unless it's already been taken, and then you use a variation of your real name. All right. But if you're an internet troll, you hide in anonymity. All right. Well, this guy who trolls me on there, claiming that double punches do not work at all, and I know that they do. We've tested them. Now, this double punch here is actually a submission maneuver that appears in some katas. It's actually not that you're punching high and low, although you can punch high and low at the same time. For example, I could punch you in the bladder and the throat simultaneously, although the top end would probably actually be a twist punch for a throat jab to fit, because the vertical fist won't fit as easily in that case. But I could punch you in the bladder with one hand and the throat or nose or face or solar plexus with the other hand, and that would be a double punch. It wouldn't be a very effective double punch because there wouldn't be much body torque into either of the punches. But that's why what I'm about to say is the truth. Double punches in kata are usually stand-ins for a grappling maneuver where you're grabbing the person by the groin and the lapel and collar of their gi or shirt and throwing them over your own shoulder. All right, with a like in the Cobra Kai video, where Daniel throws a double punch at Terry Silver and knocks the wind out of his stomach or solar plexus. That's actually not that good of a punch. But there is a double punch in Ishinru Karate where you brace the back of your hand, the base of your fist and your wrist, and you push with both punches out like that. And that has been proven to actually hit 40% harder than a straight punch, on average anyway, than a single arm straight punch, at least within a certain range of motion. All right. It's generally targeted at the solar plexus or the top of the bladder. It's not usually going to hit 40% harder when pushing up across the face. But in a tight space, if it's hitting the solar plexus or the bladder, it hits 40% harder than a single arm straight punch. So keep that in mind. You got to practice it to get 40% out of it. But it has been tested on a force meter before. Yeah, internet trolls think we don't test this stuff with force meters and with pressure testing it with real sparring. We did full contact or close to full contact sparring in Ishinru Karate class for 6 total years, about 6.5 actually, that I took Ishinru Karate. So yes, it's been pressure tested. They mistakenly believe that when we do positional sparring, or what's called kumite in Okinawan Karate, that's somehow a bad thing. That's used for teaching technique to lower ranking people at demonstration speed. So when you say, well, this would never work in a fight, it's like, dummy, that was demonstration speed for the purpose of showing a new technique to a lower middle Q or whatever. We don't fight at demonstration demonstrate at demonstration speed. But who would have thunk that it's a demonstration speed? Whereas at full fighting speed, that's going to rip the guy's arm off. All right. I'm at 20 minutes, so I've gone a little off topic and a little longer than I wanted to. So I'm going to end the video now. Thank you to anybody who watches this. But yeah, demonstration speed is for demonstrations. Fighting is for doing the technique at full power. And when you do submissions at full power, it breaks bones and dislocates and tears muscles and dislocates